Morning, the most news in the morning, period. Weekdays 6 Eastern.
There are reports the attackers were targeting American and British citizens. A little-known group, the Deccan Mujahideen, is claiming responsibility for the deadly violence in Mumbai. Joining us live from Washington, CNN national security analyst Peter Bergren. Good morning, Peter. Thanks for coming in.
Good morning, Joe.
When you look at this, what appears to be 10 coordinated attacks, almost simultaneous, what do you make of it?
Well, you know, this group, the Deccan Mujahideen, that you mentioned, has taken responsibility for it. I don't believe is really behind the attacks necessarily. We've never heard of this group. 10 coordinated attacks suggests some larger organization capable of recruiting quite a lot of people. The investigation obviously hasn't even started. Right now, we're still in the middle of a hostage rescue mission. But my intuition is that the people involved in this are probably largely local guys on the ground, Indian Muslims who've been recruited into this organization. It is quite plausible, however, that the coordination at the higher level is one of the Pakistani terrorist groups that has done these kinds of attacks before in India. We've seen an attack on the Indian Parliament in 2001 that almost brought India and Pakistan to war, which was conducted by a militant Kashmiri group. So, you know, the jury is still out. The Deccan Mujahideen is simply a cover name. It's not a real group as far as we know. But it would be surprising if there wasn't somebody in this group who trained in Pakistan, who has links to a Pakistani militant group. Because again and again, when we've seen these kinds of terrorist attacks in India, there has been some Pakistani element to it.
Now, the Prime Minister of India, we're told, has said that these people apparently came from outside the country. So that sort of comports with what you're saying here now, doesn't it?
Indeed, but you don't need that many people to come from Pakistan to coordinate the attack. I mean, I would imagine that a lot of the people involved in these attacks are people that they picked up in India. After all, India has an enormous Muslim population. There are almost as many Muslims living in India as there are living in Pakistan. The intent of these attacks is, you ask the question, you know, why are these attacks happening? One very puzzling thing is why these hostage takers haven't issued any demands. We have seen news reports that one of the attackers talked about the need to release fellow Mujahideen from prison, but we haven't really seen an official communique along those lines. Another possibility is, as you were discussing with Zain earlier before the break, that India and Pakistan have come closer together on the issues that divided them over the last several years. We've seen confidence-building measures. The issue, of course, the main issue is Kashmir, but we've seen bus services resume between India and Pakistan. We've seen flights between India and Pakistan. We've seen cricket matches. Small things, but intended to bring these countries closer together. This kind of attack obviously is going to do quite the reverse, and so part of the motivation here was to complicate relations between Pakistan and India, countries that have had 3.5 wars in the last 60 years, countries that have been coming closer together, but this kind of attack, of course, can only probably drive them apart. Certainly, as you mentioned, Prime Minister Gandhi's statements suggest outside coordination for these attacks. And over the next few days, it'll be interesting to see what the Indian government actually says and does. You may recall, Joe, that there was an attack on the Indian embassy in Kabul a few months back, and both the CIA and the Indian government have claimed that the Pakistani military intelligence service was involved in coordinating those attacks. And so it'll be interesting to see what the Indian government says about this attack, because clearly there will be signals intelligence, there'll be perhaps some of these terrorists may be arrested and interrogated. And the Indian government has shown a lot of restraint in the past when these attacks have happened. And they've tended not to try and ratchet up the pressure. But I think it would be very hard to ignore this kind of attack.